SABC News crew has been attacked while covering the protests in Alexandra. The team was verbally and physically assaulted and had all their belongings taken. The SABC has laid a charge at the Bramley Police Station. The situation remains volatile in many parts of Johannesburg as sporadic protests and the looting of stores continue. Natasha, Phiri and Gqabi Njokweni had just finished this crossing when they were robbed.
Driving around Alexandra, it's quite sad to see the ramifications of these protests. Some people have linked these protests, to the Free Zuma protests. Others have said that, listen, these are just acts of criminality that have now, infiltrated these protests as well. Because one person had said off camera, saying that, what is the whole point of looting shops and, taking people's livelihoods, especially throughout this pandemic? What is the whole point? He sees no point in that plan. Some have agreed that the former president must not go to jail, and pinning their hopes on the constitutional court application that will be heard tomorrow. But of course, these are just what is actually left behind. If I'll just step out of the camera once again, Blaine, so you could actually see the extent of damage that actually occurred to the shop. The doors were broken, the barricade was broken. You have children now entering and, seeing what they can salvage, actually take from the shop, Blaine, that was looted through this morning. And I'm told that, some of these protesters, some of these marches are actually going further down throughout the streets of Alexandra, not only from 8th Avenue. So just probably to give you a background and extent, Blaine, Pan African Mall, or the Wynberg Shopping Center supermarket that was looted, is at the beginning, just right at the top of Alexandra, and that is by Pan. Of course, the other streets that come down are, streets like 1st Avenue, 2nd Avenue, 3rd Avenue, 4th Avenue. We have visuals there that were playing earlier on of men marching in front of the hostels at 4th Avenue. And of course, all these people actually going down street by street. They've reached 8th Avenue. We are told that they're going further down towards the other avenues. And of course, it'd be interesting to see if law enforcement agencies are actually doing anything to quell down the situation here. So far, from my seeing, from Gqabi seeing, we haven't seen police vehicles here in the area. But on video footage, we saw, some firemen trying to extinguish the fires, that actually occurred and took place when the supermarkets in Penn, the Freedom Supermarkets, was actually being torched alight. But just from the store owners, just from some of the people that are against these marches here, they're raising their frustration, saying that the looting shouldn't have happened. If these protesters have a just cause, let them raise it without burning any infrastructure and looting any stores.
Now, just moments after that crossing, my colleague Natasha, Phiri and Gqabi Njokweni were then assaulted. But on the line now is Editor-in-Chief and Group Executive at SABC News and Current Affairs, Ms. Patiswa Mahopeni. She has an update on the robbery for us. Patiswa, thank you so much for your time. Firstly, before we even continue about the case, how is Natasha and Gqabi? How are they doing?
Good afternoon, Unati and SABC News channel viewers. I was with them and we have left the police station. They are back in the newsroom now. They are visibly shaken and traumatized. And we have had to ask our SABC Wellness Center to do debriefing with them and ensure that they get proper counseling. They are shaken. This was a robbery at gunpoint.
Talk to us about what happened minutes after Natasha, as we just saw her, crossing to one of my colleagues earlier today. What do we know so far in terms of how this assault happened?
From what I understand and what has been presented to the police station as the account of the incident, they were forced. The video journalist Gqabi Njokweni had a gun pointed at him, and Natasha had to force herself out of the car while the other person was trying to get towards her. And in that incident, a live unit was taken, which is the device that we use for live crossings, a camera that the video journalist was using, a tripod stand, 2 cell phones that belong to the video journalist, Natasha's handbag, and a box with cables and other equipment that we use for broadcasting. So those are the things that were taken from them during the robbery.
Now, obviously, a very terrible, assault, something that, as a journalist, you never want to happen. We know that this is not the first incident that has happened where a journalist of the SABC has been assaulted. But perhaps, Patiswa, this is an opportunity to talk to us about, what the policy around reporting in volatile situations such as these for the SABC as far as the company is concerned.
I think it's a very sad state of events and how these attacks are turning out. As you would know, some of these have been happening online and people being cyberbullied, and basically it's editorial harassment. There is an expectation that we should deviate from our independence and impartiality in the way we report and follow preferred lines by whoever wants that done. And we cannot deviate from our editorial prescript. There is a particular way in which, as a public news service, we are expected to report. So what we see happening on the ground is exactly a translation of what has been happening online. And it's unfortunate that when we go to these communities, we are delivering a public service. We are literally going to them, providing a platform for them to be able to speak for themselves without anyone interpreting them, state their views, and express their concerns. So when you see things like this, it becomes a huge problem because it means that our ability to do our work is hindered. And in turn, this inhibits the free flow of information, which works for any democracy. And if we are to take a view that when journalists get exposed to such dangers, we are going to have to pull them out of those communities, something else is going to happen, because we all know as journalists, and in fact the public knows that, in the dark, democracy dies. And it becomes a problem when we have to take decisions to protect journalists by saying that situation is volatile and therefore we cannot put your life at risk. No story is worth any journalist's life.
And the unfortunate thing, as you say, is that, journalists are the conduit for that information, from the public to the people who are leading this country, and also vice versa. What is the SABC now going to do in as far as trying to put some form of measures in place, to protect journalists? I know that there's only so much you can do, but in leading up to, the municipal elections, where we know that violent protests are always known to precede them. What is the company now at liberty to do in order to protect journalists, but also more importantly, to bring those stories that are necessary for the rest of the country?
We do have protective gear for all the journalists that go out and cover stories in the field, but that is not sufficient. What we urge communities to do for us is to assist us to be able to tell our stories in a conducive environment that allows us to do the work we are meant to do without hindrance. And this is to their benefit, because our existence is primarily to serve the citizens of the country. So if these attacks are coming from the same communities that we're meant to serve, it becomes a difficult thing for us to process, because it means that we cannot do the work that we're meant to do. But on the other hand, we also try and get communities to understand why we are doing the work we do and why we do it the way we do. So we are going to try and push some level of engagement with communities such that we build a strong social compact, to the extent that when they see us in their communities, they understand that our presence there is about us. It is about them. We are there to serve their own interests. So beyond provision of protective gear, the only thing we can do is to engage with communities and to appeal to them, to assist us, to ensure that When journalists are in those communities, they are there to serve their people.
And perhaps this incident does display just some of the difficulties that journalists the conditions that they have to report under. But more importantly, it also puts a spotlight on those criminal elements where legitimate protests are taking place and there are those opportunistic criminals at play.
That's true. Because one of the problems that we have is when we walk out of those communities because of the experiences that we get exposed to. The unfortunate thing is that it's not every single community member that is involved in those. So you are going to have criminal elements. And what we cannot do as journalists is to criminalize people's concerns and people's anger. We do our job in the way we are supposed to do it, but we also appeal to them to point out those criminal elements because they are within the communities that we cover and they know those people.
All right, thank you so much for your time.